Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring the new My Monthly Hero kit from Hero Arts. The classic kit has this adorable stamp set with matching dies, the stencil, and then the premium kit has these like little scene dies that are also included. We're going to be using the tree and the bench one today. They're super cute. You could totally make a really adorable card without the premium kit, so it really just depends on kind of what's in your budget. The bikes, these little bikes, they're layering stamps, so there's 2 layers, which you guys know I struggle with, but I actually didn't have too hard of a time lining these up. And I did, if you follow my blog or follow the Hero Arts blog, for the countdown card, I just used a classic, like just the classic kit, and it had a really cute little scene, like mini scene card as well. Today we're going to go full-blown scene cards with no outline stamps, if you can even believe that. And so I decided to stamp my first bicycle in Azalea, and then I stamped my second bicycle in Papaya, so little pink and orange bikes. This kit is very reminiscent of like childhood nostalgia, kind of. That's what it reminded me of. Like when I was much younger, probably like my son's age now. I was very blessed to live next door to like my best friend in the whole world, and we were the same exact age. And we've been together. I mean, we went preschool through high school graduation, through college, still friends. So very, very blessed by that particular relationship. Here is the second layer, which is the seat, what do you even call that? The middle portion underneath the handlebars, that little bar there that connects the steering, that connects the steering to all of the rest of the bike, and then the wheels. And in my countdown card, I did this in charcoal, which was like a softer gray. Really liked that. But for this one, I'm going to go with the bold black. I really like bold black with the brighter colors. So I'm going to stamp those down. And like I said, I stood up so that I could look directly down at them. And then I really had no issues lining them up, which is saying a lot for me because honestly, I struggle with layering stamps like every time. I did stamp 2 of these little balloons. There is a regular balloon and then a little heart balloon. I thought I would use both of them. I only ended up using one of them, but I stamped these in Summer Sky because I just thought that it would be a nice complement. I knew I was going to have a lot of green on the card just because of all the grasses. And so I thought that the little bit of a darker blue, and it will be a darker blue once we get done shading it, I just thought that that would be a nice kind of complement to the other bright colors. So I stamped just the balloon portion in Summer Sky, and then I went in and added my strings in black. And now once that is done, I'm going to go in and do my die cutting. This kit does come with coordinating dies for its images, and it has a lot of really cute little, it's got like a little cat, it's got a flower, it's got some like card envelopes, some flags you can put on the bike. So it does give you an opportunity to kind of build up and play with those bicycles a bit more. But I didn't use those. I just used the dies, which again is different for me. And I think that that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing when you can kind of break out and try something new. And so they're like doing this, everything, all the scene building I'm doing is a die. It does include the stamping, but it's no line stamping, which again is not usually my forte. I did cut out a couple of extra clouds. That's what you see me doing, just moving those cloud dies around so that I could put some extras in my sky. And then this is the cutout. This is from the premium kit. Totally love this. Think that this is so stinking cute. I love the little one with the dog running to the mailbox. But that was not for me reminiscent of my childhood. The 2 bikes were because I was always with Amy. Like I was always with Amy. Here, this is going to be the background. So I did a little ink blending with Summer Sky, and then I'm going to go in with that stencil. The stencil isn't necessary for the scene, but I do think it makes the sky a little bit more fun and interesting and a little bit more whimsical, which was really kind of the vibe I was going with. And so I decided I was going to do that. And again, just very lightly going over, not adding a ton of color. The sky is a very pale blue with more of like a lighter, it gets lighter as it goes into the center with a white center. So it's probably hard to see on screen, but in real life, you can see that little bit of pattern. And then for the die cut, I am going to go in with Fresh Lawn. That makes sense, right? Because we're doing grasses. So I'm going in with Fresh Lawn. And then I will use this on the bottom here, and then as well as on the tree. Everything else, like I'm going to be adding tons of shading with my Copic markers. So here, I'm just laying my bicycles down so that I can get an idea of where their shadow needs to be before I go in and start laying down my grasses. So those are just kind of being placeholders right now. They are not adhered down. Just marking that, and I'm using, I think it's the second to lightest color. This is a YG03. And then that way I know where to start my darkest shading. And I've done grasses in tons of videos because I do a lot of scene cards. So the long story short, for the grasses, you're just going to go in and you're going to do a lot of flicking motions. They don't need to be all the same size. They don't need to go all the same direction. In fact, I would encourage you to put them going in, different directions, always upward, but, a little to the left or a little to the right. They don't need to be straight up and down because that's not really how grass grows. And then I will do... This one I did a little bit differently, just trying to be transparent. So I went in with my mid-tone, this is a YG17, and did my grasses all over. Now, this park looks a little unkept, like it probably needs to have its lawn mowed, because the flicks are larger. So just keep that in mind. The shorter the flicks, the more compact and the neater your grass is going to look. The longer the strokes, the more kind of wild and unkept your lawn is going to look. And since I was viewing this as kind of like a park or like a grassy area where, you would go and play as a child, for me, I grew up in a development, and there were, we had a lot of houses, but there was also a lot of undeveloped area around us. The development that I grew up in was built in the 70s. And my parents moved in there in the very early 80s. I actually celebrated my very first birthday in that house. And so it did have quite a bit of undeveloped area. And so we would have these little grassy areas where we would go and play, and we would play football. Amy was more of what we called back then a tomboy, but she was my best friend. And so we would play together all the time. But then sometimes she rooked me into playing sports. And plus we played with the boys in the neighborhood. So we would play football, we would play kickball, all that kind of stuff. We were the ones that had the pool. Amy had the trampoline. So we would, switch on and off between whose house we were at and what we were doing. Here, what I'm doing is I've laid my die cut in place. This is not glued down, but this is just so that I can get my placement right for my grasses. And I'm going to color all of that white area. I should have stamped the spokes. Why didn't I think of that? I didn't think of that until literally just now. So for the pink bike, I should have stamped the spokes. I didn't. It's going to be fine. So anyway, that's what I did. I laid them down there and then did the grasses just as I would normally do so that it kind of blended into the background. And then once they're adhered, we'll go in and blend them even further. For the tree, I'm just going in and there's portions that are cut out. And so I kind of use those as a guideline to make it a little bit darker underneath the cutout. So that way I would have kind of multi-layers of tree using all of the same greens. You could totally switch this up and make this a different green if you were looking just for a little bit more color variation. But then once I have the tree leaves done, then I'm going to use the same browns for the trunk of the tree, the swing, and the bench. Those will all three be the same. So anyway, Amy used to get me involved in all kinds of sports in these little like grassy areas. We would ride our bikes all the time. We also, in the development that we lived in behind us, which was actually, it was across the street from us and behind those houses, there was also a creek that we would go. We were not supposed to play back there, just for the record, but I'm a child of the 90s, and so, you know, nobody ever knew where we were, pretty much. We went outside and played, and we had to be home by the time the sun was setting. I couldn't even say we had to be home by the time the street lights turned on. That was the rule at my grandmother's house because she lived in the city, but we lived in a much more rural area, so we didn't even have street lights in our development. So if the sun was setting, we needed to be home. And that was the rule. So basically we just went out and played. We had to tell them where we were going. But oftentimes we went to the creek anyway, even though I was forbidden from playing back there. Because that's what kids do. Anyway, you can see that I colored in my little basket with the browns. You can still see the pink shining through, but that's okay. I just needed it to be a little differentiation of color. And then I'm going in with a little bit of a darker pink. My marker was overfilled, and so you'll see me here in a second take the cap off of the back so it doesn't bleed all over, because I'm trying to put in like these little tiny lines, and my marker is super saturated. But so this doesn't have to be perfect, and the image is super cute by itself, so if you're not comfortable doing this, you could skip it and it would be fine. For the other one, I'm going to do the same thing with the oranges, which you'll see just here in a little bit. I wanted to go in with a silver gel pen and just put in some highlights on like the little petals. I wanted to color those in silver and then, you know, put in some highlights with that. This silver pen I haven't used in a while, and I actually have 3 of them. And the unfortunate thing about gel pens, if you don't use them, you lose them, kind of thing. And I don't really know how to get them restarted other than scribbling them on a piece of scrap paper and hoping for the best. You don't want to press down too hard because it does have a little ball in there, and if you're pressing too hard, you will stop the ball from turning and then no ink can come out. So I did get one of them working kind of, sort of, but it was not as opaque as it normally is. So I just tried to make do. I probably need to pick up some new metallic gel pens. And then here's me putting in kind of that orange that we talked about. And again, I'm just adding everything kind of to the bottom edge. For the balloons, I chose some blue colors. I'm going to color both of them because I genuinely thought that I was going to use both of them. But then when push came to shove, when it came to putting the card together, I only ended up using one of them. And just adding the most shading to the bottom where the balloon is tied so it's gathered, and then just a little bit of shading through the rest of it, blending it all out with my lightest color. And then we're going to add this silver right over the string, and then I'll do some white gel pen highlights along the balloons. We're going to add some clear lacquer over the top of them. So was that white highlight necessary? I don't know. It makes me feel better to use it. For the sentiment, you guys know that I typically struggle with scene cards and putting sentiments in. So I decided that I was just going to white heat emboss it over this kind of empty area of my grasses. So I'll be stamping in unicorn pigment ink, and then I am going to heat set it in white detail embossing powder. And I really don't know what happened. I'm going to be honest. I don't know. It's a little bit more green than I would prefer. It's not as bright white as I would have expected, and I'm not sure if that's because I ink blended over top of it, and then maybe I didn't buff it off enough. I'm not really sure. It's totally legible once I added the little shadows, but just not as white as I thought it would be, and I don't really know. I genuinely think it's because I added the ink over top of it, and the ink is... that does make sense, doesn't it? It's not the reactive ink, which I would normally buff off with water. It's the core inks, which are not water reactive. So I bet you that's my problem. I bet it just stuck to my embossing powder. So maybe when you do this, use the reactive ink. They have a key lime fizz that would be perfect for this. And then I also ink blended just over my grasses as well, just to blend them in a little bit more. Plus, as you can see, it makes them a little bit brighter. Yeah, I think that's the issue. I think it's that I didn't use a water-soluble ink. That would totally make sense. So even with the white, it was getting a little bit lost. So I did go back in with a fine liner. These ones that you're seeing here actually are discontinued, but I have other ones from Sketchmarker that I do like, and that is my intended go-to, so I will link to those if you're in the market for a fine liner. And I just added a drop shadow, so down and to the left, just to make them stand out a little bit more. It's still hard to read, I think, in the video, but in real life, when you look at it, it's totally legible. So here I'm using my Hero Arts Precision Glue, and I'm putting ink all over, Kelly, what is happening? Glue all over, and I'm going to adhere this down flat. Now there was a couple of clouds, well, just one cloud really, that I wanted to tuck behind it. So I did not completely press it down. I'm going to slide in this little baby cloud behind the tree, and then I will go ahead and adhere everything down. So anywho, Amy and I were together all the time. We rode our bikes everywhere. We played sports together in these little grassy areas. Went down to the creek when we weren't supposed to. I can't remember if I told you did I tell you the creek story about the stranger after we had an emergency? Let me know if I did. If not, I'll try to remember to tell you that. So anyway, the reason that the bikes make me think of Amy is because we were obviously always riding our bikes together. But my parents would tell me all the time, like, and I'm sure I'm not the only kid, like, you have to bring your bike inside, otherwise it's going to get stolen. And I was like, no, it's fine. So I would park it like on the side of the house, or I'd leave it in the front yard. Like, there'd just be bicycles laying all over the place. And do you know what happened? Do you know what happened to me? It got stolen. That's 110% what happened. 110% my bike got stolen. I ended up finding it back in that creek area, kind of like beat up and mangled, and it was unsalvageable, which was a real bummer. But yeah, listen to your parents, kids. It will get stolen, and it did. So there you could see I just went in with my greens just to blend those in a bit more, and then I'm going to go in with my crystal clear lacquer. You could also use the sparkle if you're super interested in that. And I added the lacquer to the balloon, to the tires, to the one handle that is black, and to the seats, just for a little extra, kind of pizzazz to the card. I think this is super cute, even though it has no outline stamps. I was really happy with the way that it came out. There's a ton more inspiration on the blog. This is part of a blog hop, so I hope you'll head over there, check it out. There's always prizes to win. Thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate you, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.